What's up guys, welcome back to my channel, and for today's video we'll be doing something different. I'll be creating a tier list for One Piece arcs. And why I've chose to do this is because I also enjoy watching animes and movies as well. So I thought, recently I think this month Netflix released a live action One Piece show, so I thought it's a good time for me to reflect on the One Piece I've watched over the past many years, since I think when I was 10 years younger. Yeah, and I can still kind of remember what things happened in the story arc, except for a very small amount of the arcs I probably might not really remember, but I'll try to rate the arcs according from rank D tier all the way to the S plus tier. Also note that this review would have a little bit of some spoilers, so if you have not watched One Piece yet and you don't want to be spoiled, yeah, you can skip some of the review I'll be making on the arcs that you have not watched yet. And without further ado, let's dive straight into this video. And for the first arc for One Piece, we have Alabasta. Okay, this is not in chronological order. I will just rate it according to how it is displayed at the bottom here at the screen. Yeah, so our first arc we have is Alabasta, and for Alabasta I thought that it was the first time that the Straw Hat pirates are being challenged to go beyond their current ability, and there's quite a bit of character development. Yeah, I think Alabasta is also the arc where they have a temporary crew member, and I thought that the arc is probably will be at least an S tier because there's a lot of plot twists within this arc. I think also when Luffy so-called I think failed to defeat Crocodile, I think it's one of the first, I'm not sure, is it the first defeat that he suffered. Yes, and also there are different aspects of the arcs, also not just on the villains but also so-called the revolution. There are the mutiny, yes, the mutiny that wants to rise up and overthrow the king. I will rate Alabasta an S tier because it sets as a basis of introducing many new crew members along the way, and really has quite a bit of story development and character development. So I thought overall what led to the peak of the Alabasta arc, of course with the help of several story arcs in the past, made it to what it is, an S tier. Next up we got Drum Island, and Drum Island is where they recruited Chopper as their ship's doctor, and Drum Island is a very emotional arc. I think partially it's because of the background story of Chopper. Obviously in anime we got a lot of very sad background stories, but if I were to compare it with Alabasta, it would not be that high. So Drum Island to me is an A tier. Quite a good background story of Chopper, and overall I really enjoy the arc. Next up is Jaya. I think after they defeated Crocodile in Alabasta, they went to Jaya to go to their next island, which is Sky Pier. However, for Jaya is not a very, to me I don't find the arc interesting arc, or rather I don't really like the background story on that the man that is supposedly alive. I forgot what is his name. It wasn't a very good build up arc for the next arc, which is Sky Pier, though it has introduced several important characters. However, overall I don't find Jaya to be a very good arc to watch. I will not rewatch the Jaya episodes of One Piece, so sadly I would honestly rate Jaya as a D because I don't really like that arc at all. Next we got Long Ring Long Land, and I think this is some sort of a filler arc where you can see this foxy guy, the ability to slow things down. I don't really like filler arc, so it's in a D as well, though I must admit that this filler arc is quite entertaining, a little bit stupid but very entertaining, still in the D tier anyway. Next up is Water 7, and Water 7 is a very good example of how build up should be like for the next arc, which is the Enies Lobby. Water 7 introduces you to a new emerald at the beginning, and how he sets the context and the story of the newest crew member at that time, which is Nico Robin. And there's really a lot of mysteries in this arc, which I thought it was very good. There's some fights along the way, very painful and emotional, which led to a lot of character development, underlying like character development that they thought back in their heads, I think, at this point of time. So this is the part where it's one of the lowest for the Straw Hat Pirates, and I'll rate it as either A or S tier. It's lower than Alabasta, so it's an A tier. Next up, we got Enies Lobby, and Enies Lobby is still the arc that I don't mind rewatching. I think I've rewatched many times because of many new abilities that I'm just gonna put that as S tier. Yeah, but many new abilities that Destroyed Pirates have achieved and overcome the different villains in the current arc, which is in Enies Lobby. I think it's the greatest background story that you'll get for one of the crew members, which is Nico Robin. So it's really an arc that I think many of you will agree to, that you have probably rewatched several scenes, especially the power-ups that they have received. Next up is Post Enies Lobby, mainly where they receive the newest bounties. Very entertaining. Oh, I would rate it up to an A tier. I was just thinking about it because the end of the Post Enies Lobby arc, they revealed Ace versus Blackbeard, and that really sets the tone for what is to come in the future. So I thought that bumped the tier up to many lingering questions that I had at that point of time. Next up is Thriller Bark. Honestly, I feel Thriller Bark isn't really good throughout the entire arc except the end where they introduced Bartholomew Kuma, and that was really intense. I think at the end of the arc it was very intense. I would say the same for many of the One Piece arc. It's only at the end where you kind of like level up the arc. So Thriller Bark, I'll put it as a B tier. Throughout the arc, I kind of know what happens, but this arc feels quite flat. There's not much of a plot twist, predictable, and yeah, so I'll just put it as a B tier. Next up is Sabody Archipelago, and I would confidently say that this is one of the lowest points of Destroyed Pirates because this is the arc where they realize that they are unable to protect each other and they have to get stronger. If not, they will just be destroyed by stronger enemies. So I rate Sabody Archipelago similar to Water 7 because it sets the priority that Destroyed Pirates have to become stronger. Next up, we got Romance Dawn, and I think this is the starting arc. Don't really remember a lot about what happened then, but it's mainly about Luffy's backstory meeting Shanks. And of course, because it's the starting episodes, there's a lot of introductions and good background information that you receive, so I just put it as a tier B. Next up is Amazon Lily after Sabody Archipelago, where Luffy landed into the land of the Kuja pirates. Honestly, I don't really like this arc. It's either a B or C tier because there's not much going in this arc. There's only several introductions of new powers like Haki and how Luffy's brother got captured. I think that's pretty much it. The rest is nothing much. Yeah, so it's probably a B or C tier. And after that, it's Impel Down. Yeah, so I thought after Amazon Lily, some of the good aspects is that it lets you know how Luffy infiltrates into Impel Down. And while in Impel Down, there's really a couple of reasons why Impel Down is going to be rated A tier and above. So my first thought is that Impel Down provides a lot of characters that have been shown in the past that have been put into prison. And I thought that was a really good way to revive some characters. And on top of that, some of the image that I thought of these characters kind of changed, and there's a lot of thought that's placed into the character development of the character. So I thought Impel Down is very, very interesting. I've rewatched it a couple of times and really gives a lot of flavor for One Piece fans out there. And also, if you really miss several characters, this is the time where they bring them back. So it's the S tier for Impel Down. Okay, next up, we have Marineford, and Marineford is hands down an S plus tier because it's to me the most painful arc, the best arc, the most introductions, is the most action-packed. So there's a lot of content, there's a lot of action, there's a lot of emotions involved in this arc, and I will never get tired of rewatching this arc, to be honest. Next up is post-war, which is after Marineford. For this arc, is quite painful for Luffy, and it also provides, if I remember correctly, the post-war is also where they introduce Sabo and a lot more on the childhood of Ace and Luffy. I thought there are several characters that is noteworthy, and there's a lot more introductions on the nobles as well, which sets the tone for some of the future arcs. So I thought post-war B tier, B or A tier, similar to Post Enies Lobby, maybe similar to Post Enies Lobby rating. And of course, this arc we got the return to Sabody, where there's a timescape. Previously, for the post-war, Luffy wanted to get stronger, and they know that they would not survive in the new world, which led to a timescape. And the return to Sabody is where, after the timescape, they come back stronger and ready to battle and head into the new world. And I thought it was very cool for this arc because there's many introductions of new powers. Not all of the new powers, but a lot of how the characters have changed physically in appearance and also their abilities as well. So I thought Return to Sabody deserves an A tier. Next up is Fishman Island, and I will rate it as a B tier because I thought that the Fishman Island provides a similar feels to Thriller Bark. So I will just rate it as a B tier. At the end of Fishman Island, they revealed a bit more interesting stuff about the show, which applies to almost every single arc. There's a sneak preview of what is to come or some bits of information that we finally know. Next up is Punk Hazard after Fishman Island. So for Punk Hazard, sets the pre-tone for quite a number of future arcs, though I would say that it's similar to Fishman Island and Thriller Bark, where I saw that the entire arc, except for the end, is there's not much happening. I mean, we get to know some information, but we are still kind of in the dark. Yeah, and there's not much being revealed, so I would say it's a B tier. This time I got Dressrosa, one of the longest arcs, if I remember correctly, and for Dressrosa is an S plus tier because there's a lot of big reveals there. You get to see the different characters that have their ability evolved, and also many plot twists, and also the background of Dressrosa is tragic. There's a lot of emotional aspects that's involved in this arc, and you become invested in it, so it's definitely an S plus tier. Next up is Zou. To be honest, I don't really remember a lot about Zou. Just a pre-arc to Whole Cake Island, I think. If I can't remember much, it's definitely placed in the C tier. I'm very sorry if you really like this arc. And next up is Whole Cake Island. And Whole Cake Island, I would rate it as an S plus tier. S or S plus tier, this is something slightly below than the three mentioned: Enies Lobby, Marineford, and Dressrosa. It's slightly below, but I would say it still deserves an S plus tier, mainly because there's a lot of things that's going on in this arc. More character backstories that surprised me, and I'm sure many of you, and how the storyline progress was very painful, and also a review of the actual review of some power-ups, I think, and also one of the major villains that the Straw Hats have to fight, their first attack on the Four Emperors, which makes things very interesting in this arc. This time is Orange Town, and I think Orange Town just is a C tier. Introduction of some minor characters like Buggy. I don't really remember much, which speaks about the arc. C tier for me. Reverie, I don't really remember much about this arc, so I will not rate it. I really can't remember much on this arc, so I'll just skip this arc. And for the next one, we have Syrup Village, where they make Usopp. Because it's one of the very early storylines of One Piece, I cannot really remember much, but I think there are pirates that attacked, and introduction that they have their flag and their pirate ship. So I thought that was very nice. It's basically the beginning of the Straw Hat Pirates. and I think it deserves at least a B tier, because even though I don't remember much, but I know that this is where they get their pirate flag and their pirate ship. And next up is Wano Country. I would skip this because I think the anime is currently still running the Wano Country arc. Next up is Bharati, and this is where they find Sanji and a lot of really big characters that appeared randomly. I'm not sure why. Like Mihawk is a surprise because at that point of time it's so early in the story and we don't really know he's that strong until he showed some of his abilities in the fight against Whitebeard in Marineford. Bharati is also where they show some parts of Sanji's background story. Yeah, I thought it was very nice how pirates attack and like a lot of stuff going on in this arc, so I rate it as an A tier. And next up is Along Park, which is the first major villain that destroys pirates are attacking. Rated as an S tier because of the emotional aspect on how Luffy wanted to save Nami's town, and it is the starting point where they receive, or rather Luffy receives his bounty after he defeats Along. So I thought this was also the arc where I seen quite a bit in my younger days. Definitely S tier. You see Luffy's real power to fight and that he never gives up. Okay, next up we got Looktown, and Looktown is basically the before they reach the Grand Line, the last town that they'll stop, and also the place where Gold Roger was born and executed. I think Looktown provides quite a bit of background on the beginning of the pirate era, an introduction of several devil fruit powers like the Logia for Smoker, some mysterious characters as shown in this picture right here. Ultimately, I really enjoy Looktown as a filler arc. That's where Zoro also got his swords, two of his swords, but one got destroyed in Enies Lobby. And I'll rate it as A tier. I really like Looktown. A lot of comedic effects. Buggy tried to execute Luffy, but it didn't happen. Yeah, next up is Reverse Mountain, and I think this is where they move on to the Grand Line from the East Blue. And they meet the lighthouse Laboon, the whale, and the ship doctor. Yeah, I can't really remember much. So though these Reverse Mountain characters did link to future characters, so I thought that was pretty cool. But all in all, I would just rate it as a C tier. Next up is Whiskey Peak, which is the first island that they have come about in the Grand Line, and where they met Baroque Works, or I think it's Crocodile's underling or the company. And I think Whiskey Peak provides many background on what is to come for the future storyline. And with that, I'll rate it as a B tier. Little Garden, a very, very short arc, if I remember correctly, where there's the giants where they fought whenever there's a volcano eruption. Ancient Island, and Mr. 3 coming to, and Mr. 5 coming to capture the Straw Hats but failed. Again, this island sets the context for Chopper or the Drum Island episode, because due to its ancient island habitat, there's some ancient insects where cause sickness to Nami. Yeah, so I thought because of this they had to get a doctor. Very, very good introduction, yes. And lastly, we have Sky Pier. I would have to say that I didn't really like Sky Pier a lot. I felt that it was too draggy of an arc, so it's slightly different as compared to Thriller Bark and Fishman Island, because Sky Pier was too long and too draggy in my opinion. I can't really remember much on this arc. It's just a fight between the Sky People versus the gods or something like that. I remember at the end where it kind of connects with the Jaya arc. This is it. I've rated all the One Piece arcs, and let me know what you think of it, and if you think I should do more One Piece reaction videos or even movies rating or tier arcs of some other animes. Yeah, and do let me know in the comments right below. And if you like my video, do give a like and subscribe. And I'll see you guys again real soon.